gonna put cuffs on her.
I'm gonna figure out.
So right now, we're gonna put cuffs on you. You're detained because you're lying about your age. You're going you're lying about your birthday or your name or something. That's first and foremost. So we're gonna add that charge to the charge of alcohol on the beach.
On March 31st, 2024, officers patrolling the public beach at Panama City Beach, Florida, encountered a young woman, later identified only as Olivia. What began as a routine contact over an alleged alcohol violation on the beach quickly escalated into a detention, a handcuffing, and ultimately a formal arrest on multiple charges. The body cam footage from this encounter raises questions about identity verification procedures, probable cause for arrest, and the professional conduct expected of law enforcement during interactions with young civilians. Viewer advisory. This video contains body camera footage showing the use of physical restraints and handcuffing. While presented for educational and legal analysis, some viewers may find the content intense. Viewer discretion is advised. The footage opens with officers already engaged in a contact with the young woman on the beach. From the outset, officers are asking for her name and identification. She identifies herself as Olivia, providing a middle initial of G. When officers ask for her identification, she indicates it is from Georgia. This is a routine step in any law enforcement contact. Officers must be able to identify the individuals they are dealing with, particularly when potential criminal charges are being considered. Officers begin asking for her date of birth. Her answers appear inconsistent. At one point, she provides a birthday, suggesting she is 18 years old. However, officers express doubt, stating that she had previously told them a different age. This inconsistency becomes the central justification for their decision to detain and later arrest her. Under Florida law specifically, Florida Statutes Section 856.021, a person who is lawfully detained is required to identify themselves. The question here is whether this contact had yet crossed the threshold from a consensual encounter into a lawful detention. This is the moment that legally defines what follows. The officer states, quote,
So right now, we're gonna put cuffs on you. You're detained because you're lying about your age.
The Supreme Court in Terry v. Ohio established that a law enforcement officer may briefly detain a person when the officer has reasonable, articulable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot. The suspected criminal activity here is providing false identification, which, in Florida, can constitute obstruction under Florida Statutes Section 843.02. The inconsistency in the subject's stated birthday arguably provided reasonable suspicion. However, what transforms a brief Terry stop into a formal arrest requires a higher legal standard: probable cause. Officers decide to place Olivia in handcuffs. She has not made any physically aggressive move at this point. She is not fleeing. She is not reaching for a weapon. The officer's stated justification is that she is being detained for providing inconsistent information about her identity. Handcuffing during an investigative detention is permissible under case law in limited circumstances, but courts have held that handcuffing must be justified by specific facts indicating a threat to officer safety or a flight risk. Simply providing inconsistent answers to questions does not automatically meet that threshold.
I did not start running. I did not start running.
You said
I did not start running.
it's all on camera, so she did start running, so we put her in handcuffs.
The officer now formally announces the charges: resisting without violence, alcohol on the beach, and public intoxication. Under Florida Statutes Section 843.02, resisting without violence requires that the subject obstruct, resist, or oppose a law enforcement officer engaged in the lawful execution of a legal duty, and that this resistance be without violence. The officer mentions that she began moving away and started running. If those facts are confirmed by the body cam footage, they could support a resisting charge. However, the subject's verbal denials and physical claim that she was not running remain contested at this stage. Olivia disputes the charge of public intoxication. The officer, however, observes that she is leaning on him and cannot stand up straight, a key observable indicator used in field assessments of intoxication. Under Florida Statutes, Section 856.011, disorderly intoxication requires that a person be intoxicated in a public place to the degree that they are a danger to themselves or others, or are causing a public disturbance. The officer's observations impaired balance, inability to stand unaided, would typically be documented in an arrest report and could provide probable cause for this charge. This is an important distinction. Reasonable suspicion, the lower standard established in Terry v. Ohio, justifies a brief investigative stop. Probable cause, the higher standard required by the Fourth Amendment, is required for a formal arrest. Officers appear to have transitioned from detention to arrest during this encounter. The question courts would examine is whether the observable facts available at the time of arrest met the probable cause threshold for each of the charges stated. Olivia is transported on foot and then loaded into a police transport vehicle referred to in radio communications as a cage car. Officers coordinate their response, with one officer walking with her and another following on an ATV. During this transport phase, officers exchange administrative instructions. The encounter, which began as a beach alcohol contact, has now escalated to a formal custodial arrest.
Are y'all hunting eggs? What are we doing here? What are the eggs for? Oh, your kids? Okay.
Yeah.
Where are your kids at?
They right there.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I got it. Oh, we're just making sure that.
There's just some other kids out here. We gotta make sure there's nothing bad. Obviously we would have. Just walk up the stairs for me.
I'd have to chase you yet again, and you'd get an extra charge. People were looking at that. That's disorderly.
Watch out, let them know. Alright, have a seat back there for me. Those are my cuffs on her, Harmon, whenever you get a chance.
And you'd get an extra charge.
Olivia's verbal outbursts, including profanity directed at the officers, are offensive and confrontational. However, under First Amendment protections affirmed in City of Houston v. Hill, profanity directed at law enforcement does not constitute criminal conduct. Courts have consistently held that it is not a crime to be rude to a police officer. Verbal expression of anger, frustration, or contempt toward law enforcement, while unwise, remains constitutionally protected speech. The officer's decision to warn her about additional charges in response to her language raises concern about whether punishment is being threatened for protected conduct.
I fucking hope
Be an adult.
I hope I die.
You hope you die.
I do.
Okay.
During the transport phase, Olivia makes a statement indicating she hopes she dies. The officers respond, and one officer subsequently asks whether she is diabetic and whether she takes any medications. This is a critical and commendable step. Law enforcement officers are obligated to monitor the welfare of individuals in their custody. The medical welfare check performed here, however brief, demonstrates a basic duty of care. Any indication that a person in custody is in distress, whether physical or emotional, must be addressed. The footage concludes with officers completing radio communications and continuing to process the arrest. By the end of the encounter, Olivia faces, at minimum, the following charges: resisting an officer without violence, alcohol on the beach, and public intoxication. The officers have called for a transport vehicle and are coordinating final administrative steps. The arrest is complete. 3 charges emerge from this encounter. First, alcohol on the beach. Panama City Beach enforces municipal code restrictions on open alcohol containers in public beach areas. This is a relatively minor violation, but provides the initial lawful basis for the officer contact. Second, public intoxication. Under Florida Statutes, Section 856.011, The state must show that the subject was intoxicated in public to the point of endangering themselves or others, or causing a disturbance. The officer's observations of impaired balance support this charge. Third, resisting without violence. Florida Statutes Section 843.02 requires only that the subject obstruct a lawful law enforcement function. No physical aggression is required. A fourth potential charge providing false identification underlies the entire encounter. Florida law does not require a private citizen to identify themselves unless lawfully detained. Once detention was established, however, the inconsistency in the birthday Olivia provided created legal exposure. Officers are permitted to detain a suspect longer when they cannot verify identity through other means. This rationale was upheld in Hybel v. 6th Judicial District of Nevada in 2004. The totality of the contact, beach alcohol violation, observed intoxication, inability to consistently state a birthday, provided a foundation for both the extended detention and the eventual arrest. At the time of this analysis, the outcome of any criminal charges or civil proceedings arising from this incident remains unknown. Attempts to locate court records, news coverage, or official statements related to this specific arrest were unsuccessful. Based on the charges stated by the officers on camera, Olivia faced prosecution under Florida law for resisting without violence, disorderly intoxication, and violation of beach alcohol ordinances. Any challenge to these charges would likely center on the probable cause analysis for the resisting charge and whether the initial detention was lawfully established under Terry. The officers in this encounter receive a C+. The initial basis for the contact, suspected alcohol on a public beach, was legally sufficient. Officers were within their authority to request identification once an alcohol violation was suspected, and to detain the subject when her identity could not be confirmed. The transition to arrest was supported by observable signs of intoxication and a contested flight or evasion attempt documented on the Bodycam footage. These elements provide a legal foundation for the charges filed. However, several serious concerns arise. First, an officer is heard using the phrase, "shut the fuck up," directed at the subject or bystanders, which falls below the professional standard expected of law enforcement. Profanity from officers does not belong in a custodial encounter and undermines the department's credibility. Second, the officer's threat of additional charges in response to constitutionally protected verbal expression, while legally distinct from an unlawful arrest for speech, creates the appearance of retaliatory policing. Third, the welfare check at the end of the encounter, while brief, was appropriate and represents the minimum standard expected when a subject in custody expresses distress. Overall, this encounter reflects officers who understood their legal authority but fell short on professionalism and de-escalation. Olivia receives a B-. Several aspects of her behavior during this encounter are legally understandable, but tactically counterproductive. When officers had difficulty verifying her identity, her inconsistency in providing her date of birth, whether intentional or the result of intoxication, directly escalated the situation. Providing consistent, accurate information in response to a lawful detention is not only legally required under Florida's Stop and Identify framework, it is also the most effective way to de-escalate a law enforcement contact. Her decision to attempt to move away from officers described on camera as running provided the factual basis for the resisting charge. Regardless of whether she believes she was actually running, officers' observations on Bodycam constitute evidence that courts will examine. On the positive side, Olivia did not physically fight officers during the handcuffing process, which prevented the encounter from escalating to a use-of-force incident. Her verbal frustration, while understandable, is legally protected speech and should not itself constitute criminal exposure. Her statement expressing a desire to die warrants attention if this reflected genuine distress rather than hyperbole. The appropriate next step would have been a mental health wellness assessment in addition to the standard arrest processing. The wisest course of action in any law enforcement encounter, particularly one involving potential intoxication, is to provide accurate identification, remain calm, and reserve legal challenges for the courtroom. Before we go, Here are a few takeaways from this case. 1. Once you are lawfully detained, you are generally required to identify yourself. Providing inconsistent information does not protect you and typically makes the situation worse. 2. You cannot be arrested for verbal profanity directed at police, but threatening additional charges in response to protected speech is a red flag worth documenting. 3 signs of physical impairment in public, like inability to stand unaided, are observable probable cause indicators for intoxication charges, regardless of whether you believe you are intoxicated. 4. If you attempt to move away from a detention, even if you do not believe you are running, officers may document it as evasion, creating exposure for a resisting charge. 5. If a person in custody expresses thoughts of self-harm. Officers have a duty of care obligation to perform a welfare check, and witnesses should make sure this is documented. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic that you would like us to discuss in the comments below. If you found this analysis useful, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next case breakdown. Thank you for watching.